The operational architecture of RAE from the outside. Every intelligence agency looks like a silent fortress, but the real power lies in the invisible machinery behind it. And RA, India's Research and Analysis Wing, is one of those institutions whose most decisive movements happen far away from public eyes, in rooms where no cameras reach, and in conversations that never make it to any official record. For decades, analysts, diplomats, and rival agencies have all asked the same question. How does RA actually work? What lies behind its reputation of being one of the most discreet, low-profile intelligence services in Asia? Today, we lift that curtain, carefully, responsibly, and only through documented, publicly available insights. Before we begin this deep exploration, I want to welcome everyone watching. Let me know in the comments where you are joining us from, and if you are interested in learning how different intelligence agencies operate from behind the scenes. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this documentary so more people can discover these untold, research-based stories. Now, let's move into the world of RA, a world built on silence, precision, and long-term strategy. RA's operational architecture does not resemble the dramatic portrayals shown in popular culture. In reality, its structure is layered like a slow-moving but deeply rooted system, designed for patience rather than speed, analysis rather than emotion, and strategic leverage rather than open confrontation. Unlike many intelligence agencies that evolved through wars or revolutions, RIO grew through a gradual bureaucratic molding, a combination of political directives, foreign policy necessities, regional security concerns, and India's ambition to maintain a stable intelligence footprint in South Asia. But beneath that slow evolution lies a complex ecosystem of components: the Director's Secretariat, the operational desks, regional divisions, analysis units, technical branches, and liaison channels, each performing a highly specific function that contributes to the agency's silent influence. At the center sits the Director of RA, but the power is not concentrated in one chair. Instead, it flows horizontally across desks responsible for continents, borders, oceans, and thematic priorities. Open-source intelligence reviews, strategic briefings, interagency coordination notes, and cross-border assessments form the backbone of decision-making. But the real operational heartbeat is the Field Interaction Network, a quiet grid of officers, analysts, case handlers, and locally connected individuals who gather information, filter it, verify it, and then send it upward for interpretation. Every piece of information goes through multiple stages: raw collection, preliminary assessment, secondary confirmation, analysis review, and final policy recommendation. This multi-stage filtration is what gives RAA its reputation for long-term strategic depth rather than quick tactical reactions. The agency's regional desks operate like independent islands inside one larger archipelago. One desk may focus on political stability in neighboring countries, another on maritime developments in the Indian Ocean, another on insurgency monitoring, and another on economic intelligence. None of these desks operate in isolation. They feed into each other through a silent relay of cross-referenced reports. When a potential threat or opportunity surfaces, the analysis branches take over, constructing a layered assessment based on multiple inputs. These assessments are not simple summaries. They weigh context, history, probabilities, and outcomes, building a full picture long before it reaches decision-makers. One of the lesser-known aspects of RAA as operational design is its emphasis on long-term scenario building rather than short-term crisis management. Intelligence is not treated as mere information, but as a predictive tool. Analysts do not ask, "What happened?" They ask, "What is likely to happen next?" And this predictive thinking shapes almost every covert action, diplomatic recommendation, or long-term surveillance project the agency undertakes. The idea is simple: influence the future before the future arrives. Another crucial element is the use of non-official cover operatives who stay outside diplomatic circles and, therefore, outside the protective umbrella of formal immunity. These individuals blend into academic, business, cultural, or humanitarian settings, gathering insights that official representatives cannot easily access. Their reports often become the seed for larger operations or strategic forecasts. Because of this, much of RAO's effectiveness depends not on the number of officers it deploys, but on the quality of relationships it builds quietly, patiently, and invisibly. The liaison partnerships it maintains with other intelligence services also form a major pillar of its architecture. Through unofficial yet recognized channels, RAO exchanges regional insights, technical knowledge, and cross-border threat assessments with partner agencies. These relationships are not fixed. They shift with global politics, economic interests, and geopolitical alignment. Yet they provide the agency with access to wider pools of data: satellite imagery, cyber threat logs, maritime tracking systems, cross-border criminal network analysis, and migration patterns. This collaborative intelligence environment helps the agency form a deeper understanding of its surroundings. But none of this machinery works without internal discipline. The confidentiality protocols, need-to-know access restrictions, secure communications, and compartmentalized briefings. Information flows in controlled streams, never in open channels. A field officer may know everything about one operation and nothing about another, even if both occur simultaneously. This compartmentalization ensures operational safety and protects the identities of individuals involved in sensitive work. Yet despite this vast architecture, RAO is not a monolithic machine. It is an evolving organism. Its structure shifts with new security challenges, regional tensions, technological breakthroughs, and global political trends. From counterinsurgency monitoring to maritime intelligence, from strategic regional assessments to overseas information networks, RAW's operational architecture is a continuous work in progress, one that adapts to the world rather than resisting it. And as this architecture expanded quietly over the decades, another domain became crucial to RAO's identity: the human element behind the intelligence. The recruitment processes, the psychological training, the covert tradecraft skills, and the shaping of officers who operate in silence for years. As we move forward, this becomes the foundation for understanding how the agency functions beyond its walls, in real environments, through people whose names the world never learns and whose contributions rarely enter public conversations as the story transitions seamlessly into the world of recruitment, training, and the evolving tradecraft that defines RAW's operational core, continuing the same flow without pause. As the agency's operational architecture matured, the true strength of RAO increasingly depended on those individuals who entered its ranks, through pathways that were never publicly advertised, often hidden inside ordinary career patterns where no one would suspect an intelligence trajectory. Recruitment inside RAO has always been an art of observation rather than open selection, shaped by subtle talent spotting, discrete background evaluations, and long-term psychological profiling that ensures an officer's suitability for silent work. Unlike military or administrative services, where performance is measured through visible results, RAW looks for qualities that rarely appear on paper: a quiet mind, analytical patience, emotional stability, and the ability to blend into unfamiliar environments without disrupting local dynamics. The recruitment pipeline begins earlier than people assume. Many officers enter through civil services, foreign service, or specialized technical roles, but their selection into RAW often comes only after years of unnoticed evaluation. Supervisors watch how they process information, how they handle pressure, how they react to ambiguity, and whether they possess the rare combination of discipline and adaptability needed for field operations. Even those who join through external routes undergo a deep psychological assessment designed not to filter for bravery or physical strength, but for cognitive endurance and controlled thinking. Once selected, recruits enter a world where training is not presented as a dramatic boot camp, but as a long immersion into layered tradecraft. The first and most important lesson focuses on the art of observation, learning to notice details without appearing to notice them. This involves subtle exercises, such as tracking movements in busy markets, identifying behavioral anomalies in crowds, evaluating tone shifts in ordinary conversations, and learning how to gather information without triggering suspicion. These skills are not learned in weeks. They evolve over months through repeated simulations, urban drills, and decision-making scenarios designed to teach officers how to remain calm when circumstances change rapidly. Recruits also learn the internal discipline required to operate in compartmentalized environments. They are trained to accept incomplete information, avoid assumptions, and rely on analytical reasoning rather than adrenaline-driven instincts. Tradecraft modules cover a wide spectrum: covert communication techniques, dead-drop protocols, establishing safe meeting routines, counter-surveillance exercises, document handling, secure travel methods, and controlled identity management. While much of this training mirrors global intelligence standards, RAW places heavy emphasis on cultural immersion, teaching officers to blend into environments across South Asia, Southeast Asia, and parts of the Middle East and Africa. This requires linguistic adaptation, understanding local etiquette, recognizing socio-political patterns, and learning how to dissolve into a setting without leaving behavioral signatures. The technical training component has expanded significantly over the decades. Modern recruits work with surveillance technology, encrypted communication systems, digital forensics tools, and network tracking methods. They learn how to trace information flows across online platforms, analyze digital behavior patterns, and identify hidden connections inside complex data webs. This digital literacy is not designed to create hackers, but to enable officers to understand how information behaves in cyberspace, where threats originate, how misinformation spreads, and how networks evolve. RAW's shift toward technology has transformed not only its capabilities, but also its identity, adding a new generation of officers who think in datasets, patterns, and systemic signals rather than traditional field perceptions. An essential part of training involves teaching officers restraint, the ability to gather intelligence without intervening prematurely, to observe without reacting, and to build long-term networks that may take years to mature. Patience becomes a professional requirement. Many field officers spend prolonged periods cultivating sources, building trust, and documenting slow-moving developments that eventually shape regional assessments. These operations are not glamorous, and success is rarely visible, yet they form the analytical backbone of the agency's decision-making. Another crucial component is psychological endurance. Officers learn how to operate under isolation, how to manage stress in unfamiliar territories, how to maintain emotional detachment while building relationships that may later become operational assets. They also undergo controlled exposure scenarios, simulations that recreate real-world unpredictability, such as sudden surveillance, compromised cover, disrupted communication channels, or unexpected changes in source behavior. These exercises teach officers to make decisions under pressure without compromising mission integrity or operational safety. But tradecraft is not only about skills. It is about identity. Every officer learns how to balance two worlds: the private life that remains invisible and the professional life that cannot be shared. This duality shapes their outlook, their emotional discipline, and the quiet responsibility they carry. The training environment prepares them for this balance through strict confidentiality, protocols, and structured behavioral conditioning that helps them detach from operational stress once their workday ends, even though their missions often continue silently beneath the surface. As Railroads expanded its recruitment strategies over time, it also began developing specialized units focused on cyber operations, maritime intelligence, advanced analytics, and socio-political behavioral mapping. These units require officers who excel not only in classical fieldwork, but also in digital investigation, strategic prediction, and cross-domain integration. The agency's approach to training shifted accordingly, blending traditional espionage techniques with modern intelligence science, creating officers capable of navigating both physical and digital landscapes with equal precision. And as these specialized operatives began engaging with new forms of intelligence collection, the role of technology grew even stronger. Surveillance evolved from physical observation to multi-source digital analysis, signals interception, foreign data interpretation, and real-time monitoring of cross-border networks. This shift marks the beginning of another dimension of RAW's evolution. The technological backbone that supports its covert operations, strengthens its analytical forecasting, and enables the agency to maintain relevance in an era where intelligence is no longer just gathered from the field, but extracted from the flow of global information itself, continuing seamlessly as the story moves into the next domain without interruption. As technology reshaped the landscape of intelligence gathering, RAW's operational priorities shifted towards systems capable of monitoring vast flows of information without depending entirely on physical presence. This transition did not replace traditional espionage. Instead, it layered a powerful new dimension onto the agency's existing framework. The earliest versions of RAW's technological capabilities were modest, designed primarily for intercepting cross-border communication lines, analyzing radio chatter, and monitoring diplomatic transmissions. But as regional threats evolved and digital networks expanded, the agency understood that real influence would depend on mastering signals, data behavior, and the invisible patterns that exist inside modern communication systems. The foundation of this evolution began with signals intelligence units that operated behind closed doors, analyzing fragments of intercepted transmissions and reconstructing them into meaningful insights. Officers trained in advanced linguistics, cryptography, and waveform analysis worked quietly in sealed rooms, identifying unusual patterns in what appeared to be ordinary messages. These early teams were not equipped with the sophisticated tools available today, but their methodical approach laid the groundwork for RAW's modern analytical systems. Over time, the agency invested in secure listening posts, satellite-linked relay stations, and digital interception nodes that allowed it to monitor communications across strategic regions. This growth was not only technological, but also organizational, as the signals division became one of RAW's most critical internal components. Data operations expanded rapidly with the rise of digital ecosystems. RAW recognized that information did not travel linearly anymore. It moved through networks, platforms, and encrypted channels that required deeper computational understanding. Analysts developed new techniques for mapping digital relationships, tracking anonymous accounts, and identifying hidden coordination between entities that appeared unrelated on the surface. The agency began to rely heavily on predictive modeling, machine-assisted analytics, and pattern recognition algorithms designed to detect anomalies across cyber landscapes. These tools allowed RAW to anticipate emerging threats before they became visible, creating early warning indicators that informed strategic decisions. The integration of cyber capability became essential as foreign intelligence services increasingly conducted influence campaigns, misinformation operations, and digital espionage. In response, RIA built specialized cyber units responsible for monitoring data breaches, defending national infrastructure, and tracking hostile cyber footprints. These units operated with strict compartmentalization, often working under code-named projects that only a handful of senior officers understood. Their tasks included tracing phishing networks, identifying malware origins, analyzing cyber intrusion patterns, and studying behavior signatures left behind by adversarial hackers. Through this, RAW discovered that cyber operations were not simply technical exercises, but psychological landscapes shaped by human decision-making and methodological habits. At the operational level, technology enabled field officers to conduct missions with greater precision. Secure communication devices allowed them to transmit intelligence discreetly. Encrypted burst systems minimized exposure time, and silent coordination tools ensured safe movement within sensitive environments. Surveillance transformed from manual observation to multi-layered monitoring, combining physical cues with digital footprints, location data, and metadata trails that revealed more about an individual's behavior than direct questioning ever could. Officers learned to track adversaries through transaction patterns, travel records, and social graph analysis, identifying hidden networks that operated beneath visible structures. Yet technology also introduced challenges. Digital systems expanded the battlefield, increasing the number of threats and the complexity of detecting them. RAW had to adapt rapidly, creating frameworks for verifying information authenticity and countering fabricated intelligence designed to mislead analysts. This required a new generation of officers, fluent in both classical intelligence methods and modern data science. These operatives combined field intuition with computational reasoning, enabling them to interpret signals that were not simply messages, but reflections of strategic intentions. One of RAW's most significant advancements came with its ability to integrate multi-source intelligence. Rather than relying on isolated channels, the agency developed systems that combined human intelligence, digital data, satellite imagery, and regional assessments into unified analytical models. This fusion allowed officers to understand broader patterns, anticipate shifts in geopolitical dynamics, and evaluate risks with greater accuracy. Satellite surveillance added another layer, providing visual confirmation of developments in remote or inaccessible regions. High-resolution imagery allowed analysts to track construction changes, monitor movement across borders, and validate intelligence gathered through other means. These technological integrations strengthened RAW's capacity to conduct complex operations across global environments. The agency became capable of identifying emerging threats, mapping hidden logistical routes, and monitoring regional hotspots long before public awareness. This expansion also enhanced RIO's collaboration with international intelligence communities, enabling secure intelligence exchanges, coordinated assessments, and combined monitoring efforts where interests aligned. Through these partnerships, RAY gained access to advanced analytical tools and contributed region-specific insights valuable to global intelligence networks. Despite these advancements, the agency maintained a cautious approach to technology. Officers understood that over-reliance could create vulnerabilities, especially in environments where adversaries used deception techniques or manipulated digital signals to obscure their intentions. Therefore, RIA preserved a critical balance. Technology served as an extension of human intelligence, not a replacement for it. Field officers still played a central role, validating digital findings through direct observation, evaluating context through personal relationships, and navigating human variables that no system could fully predict. This blended ecosystem of signals intelligence, data operations, and field integration eventually shaped a new era of RAE operational identity. The agency evolved into a structure where analysts, cyber specialists, field operatives, and strategic planners worked in synchronized layers, each contributing to the larger intelligence mosaic. This evolution set the stage for this next pivotal chapter, the operations that would define RA's reputation, the missions that brought the agency global attention, and the cases where the combination of human skill and technological precision demonstrated the full extent of its capabilities. In the evolution of any intelligence agency, moments of decisive action define how the world perceives its capabilities. For RIO, these moments emerged through a series of complex missions, some successful, some disputed, yet each contributing to the agency's operational identity. By the late 20th century, RAW had transitioned from a young institution into a regional intelligence actor with a growing international footprint. Understanding its role requires examining the operations that most significantly influenced its reputation. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your support helps us continue producing deeply researched intelligence documentaries like this one. Now, let's move forward into the next chapter. The first major milestone, often cited by researchers, is RAW's involvement during the 1971 Bangladesh conflict. At this point, the agency was less than 4 years old, yet it was entrusted with a mission that would alter South Asia's geopolitical landscape. RAW built a multi-layered intelligence network, established contacts across resistance groups, assessed ground conditions, and analyzed shifting political currents. Observers note that the agency provided crucial situational awareness that helped shape India's strategic decisions in the region. The operation marked RAW's emergence as a capable regional intelligence service. Another operation frequently referenced in academic studies is a mid-1980s transnational monitoring program aimed at mapping hostile networks operating near India's borders. Although many details remain classified, open-source assessments indicate that RAW combined human sources with early digital surveillance methods, identifying supply corridors, communication nodes, and financial backers. The intelligence produced through this program contributed to several policy-level decisions and strengthened diplomatic engagement with partner countries. Analysts regard it as one of RAW's earliest examples of integrating strategic intelligence with foreign policy. A third landmark mission came in the early 1990s when South Asia was witnessing a surge in militant activity. RAW expanded its SIGINT capabilities, focusing on intercepting encrypted communications between cross-border networks. This project uncovered concealed communication routes, enabling security forces to track and neutralize emerging threats. Many former officials describe this phase as the foundation of RAW's modern signals intelligence architecture, an architecture that continues to influence India's counterterrorism posture. A fourth operation unfolded quietly beyond India's borders, involving the tracking of financial streams that supported destabilizing activities in South Asia. By leveraging long-term observation, overseas sources, and engagements with expatriate communities, RAW reportedly exposed a complex chain of foreign support channels. Although much of this operation remains unacknowledged publicly, international analysts have cited it as a rare example of successful financial intelligence coordination in the region. It also reinforced India's diplomatic messaging at a time when regional stability was under scrutiny. The fifth widely discussed achievement relates to a crisis in a sensitive South Asian zone, where rapid shifts in local dynamics threatened to escalate into a wider confrontation. RAW utilized a combination of ground assessments, technical surveillance, and cooperation with regional partners to forecast emerging risks. These early warnings provided decision-makers with the time necessary to create a security buffer that helped mitigate the impact of the developing crisis. For many intelligence scholars, this operation demonstrated the agency's growing expertise in predictive analysis, an increasingly vital skill in modern intelligence work. Together, these 5 operations reveal how RAW's identity took shape, not through publicity, but through cumulative strategic actions. Each mission added a layer to the institution's operational memory and shaped how policymakers, analysts, and foreign observers assess its role today. Yet reputations are never built on successes alone. The next segment moves into the equally important domain of failures and setbacks, moments where intelligence gaps, unexpected variables, or miscalculations challenged the agency's capabilities and reshaped its strategies moving forward. As RAW expanded its operational reach and accumulated a track record of notable missions, it also encountered moments that tested its analytical capacity, structural resilience, and strategic vision. Intelligence agencies rarely operate in a linear path of continuous success. Their evolution is shaped equally by the weight of their failures. For RAW, several episodes across the decades exposed vulnerabilities that forced reevaluations within the organization and reshaped approaches to intelligence gathering, assessment, and covert engagement. These challenges not only revealed limitations, but also highlighted the unpredictable complexities of regional geopolitics. The first major setback often cited by historians concerns the early 1980s, when RAW's ground networks in a sensitive neighboring region struggled to accurately predict the scale and direction of escalating militant movements. While the agency had access to scattered field reports and isolated intercepts, its analytical teams were unable to fully consolidate these fragments into a coherent strategic picture. As a result, policymakers received assessments that underestimated the momentum of local insurgent factions. When unrest intensified suddenly, the intelligence gap became evident, prompting internal reviews about coordination between field assets and regional desks. This episode underscored the challenge of operating in environments shaped by deep socio-political undercurrents that often remain hidden beneath surface-level indicators. Another significant challenge emerged in the early 1990s, when IRI attempted to infiltrate a hostile network operating across multiple international borders. The operation was ambitious and required synchronized coordination between assets stationed in several partner countries. However, the mission encountered setbacks when one of the intermediary communication chains collapsed due to compromised routing channels. Open-source accounts suggest that the agency had not fully mapped the extent of counterintelligence surveillance deployed by hostile actors, resulting in disrupted contact points and incomplete situational awareness. Although the operation was eventually scaled down and restructured, the failure highlighted the risks involved when operating in regions with multiple competing intelligence services. The agency faced yet another difficulty during a tense standoff period in a conflict-prone area where rapid changes in local allegiances created an unstable intelligence environment. RAW's initial assessments indicated a temporary decline in militant activity, but subsequent field-level developments contradicted these estimates. As local power dynamics shifted overnight, previously stable information channels suddenly became unreliable. Analysts later noted that the agency had relied too heavily on specific nodes rather than diversifying its sources to cross-verify reports. This miscalculation limited its ability to provide timely warnings, illustrating how fluid alliances on the ground can disrupt even well-established intelligence networks. One of the more debated setbacks occurred during an international diplomatic crisis, where RA attempted to monitor emerging security developments in a maritime zone critical to India's strategic interests. Technical surveillance systems were deployed, and human intelligence assets were activated, yet a significant portion of relevant activity went undetected due to the sophisticated countermeasures employed by external actors. When the full extent of the crisis became visible, it raised questions about technological preparedness and the need for upgrades in maritime intelligence capabilities. The episode triggered long-term investments in coastal surveillance, satellite reconnaissance, and underwater monitoring systems, marking a turning point in India's approach to maritime security. A less publicized but internally significant setback involved a counterterrorism-related analysis failure in the mid-2000s. IRIO had identified several warning signals suggesting the rise of a new militant offshoot, but analysts struggled to determine the group's operational capabilities. The fragmented nature of the intelligence led to delayed assessments, preventing early mitigation measures. Although authorities eventually contained the threat, the delay exposed weaknesses in interagency information sharing and reinforced the need for real-time analytical frameworks. This incident contributed to the broader modernization of India's multi-agency coordination mechanisms in the years that followed. Across these episodes, one theme stands out: intelligence failures, often emerge not from the absence of information, but from the challenge of interpreting it accurately within shifting geopolitical landscapes. For Ra, each setback became a lesson in adapting methodologies, strengthening technical infrastructure, improving cross-border collaboration, and refining analytical rigor. These refinements would become crucial as the agency moved into a new era where threats evolved beyond traditional state actors and into domains shaped by digital warfare, transnational networks, and rapid information flows. The story now moves toward ROE's transition into the modern age, an era defined by cyber intelligence, satellite surveillance, multi-agency coordination, and the expansion of India's strategic interests beyond its immediate neighborhood. As AI entered the 21st century, the challenges it faced became increasingly complex, shaped not just by traditional geopolitical tensions, but by the rapid evolution of digital networks, cyber warfare, and the growing influence of private technological ecosystems. Where earlier decades had revolved around human intelligence, border conflicts, and covert field operations, the new era demanded mastery of algorithms, data flows, encrypted communication webs, and the silent battleground of information dominance. The agency's modernization was therefore not merely a structural transition, but a fundamental redefinition of how intelligence was gathered, processed, and deployed. The transformation began gradually with the global shift toward digital infrastructures. RA's cybersecurity units recognized early that state and non-state actors were beginning to weaponize cyberspace, conducting espionage campaigns that bypassed physical borders entirely. To adapt, the agency expanded its cyber intelligence wings, integrating analysts who specialized in data science, artificial intelligence, encryption architecture, and network forensics. Unlike traditional operatives, these new specialists worked in isolated high-security facilities, mapping hostile digital footprints, tracing intrusion attempts, and monitoring encrypted communications flowing through international servers. Their work was quiet, invisible, and deeply technical, yet it soon became central to the agency's strategic posture. At the same time, Rao recognized that the modern intelligence ecosystem required hybrid methods that blended human intelligence with digital monitoring. Field operatives were equipped with advanced surveillance tools capable of collecting encrypted signals, capturing metadata, and transmitting real-time observations through secure, multi-layered communication channels. Instead of relying solely on physical infiltration, operatives now used digital camouflage operating under fabricated online identities, embedding themselves in virtual communities, and observing informational patterns that revealed hidden alliances or emerging threats. This dual-layered approach allowed RAW to track transnational networks that operated across both physical and digital terrains. Satellite intelligence became another pillar of RAW's modernization. With the expansion of India's space capabilities, the agency gained access to high-resolution imagery, maritime tracking systems, and orbital monitoring platforms capable of observing strategic zones in near real time. These assets allowed the agency to map troop movements, identify covert infrastructure developments, monitor shipping routes, and assess disaster-related vulnerabilities. Satellite data was fused with human intelligence and signals intercepts, creating layered intelligence models that provided policymakers with nuanced and actionable assessments. RAW's global presence also evolved. Instead of focusing narrowly on regional dynamics, the agency expanded its attention toward emerging geopolitical corridors regions where strategic competition between global powers created new spaces for intelligence collection. Operatives were deployed in diplomatic, commercial, and cultural environments, gathering insights into shifting alliances, infrastructure negotiations, technological partnerships, and political trends. Many of these officers carried dual roles, publicly engaged in legitimate professions while discreetly gathering information essential for long-term national strategy. Their reports helped India anticipate global developments, from resource competition in the Indian Ocean to digital influence operations in major urban hubs. One of the most transformative shifts, however, occurred in the domain of counter-disinformation. As misinformation networks grew in scale and sophistication, RAW developed analytical units dedicated to identifying narrative manipulation campaigns orchestrated by foreign actors. These units used pattern recognition algorithms, cross-platform analysis, and psychological modeling to detect influence attempts before they reached critical mass. Rather than engaging publicly, the agency focused on neutralizing threats, quietly disrupting information pipelines, isolating manipulated data clusters, and supporting national agencies responsible for public communication security. Internally, RAW also underwent structural reforms designed to streamline coordination with other branches of India's security architecture. Intelligence today is global, fast-moving, and interdependent. No agency can operate effectively in isolation. Through multi-agency task forces, joint analytical cells, and secure digital bridges, we all contributed to the creation of a more synchronized national intelligence ecosystem. These collaborations enabled rapid threat assessment during crisis, whether related to border tensions, emerging militant networks, cyber intrusions, or regional power shifts. Yet despite technological advances, AROE's leadership consistently emphasized that intelligence work ultimately depends on human judgment, the ability to interpret ambiguous signals, understand cultural nuances, and anticipate how individuals and states might behave under pressure. For this reason, the agency continued to invest heavily in its recruitment and training frameworks. Operatives were selected not only for technical expertise, but for resilience, adaptability, psychological strength, and cultural fluency. Training programs incorporated urban infiltration exercises, digital conflict simulations, language immersion modules, and scenario-based strategic analysis. The objective was to produce operatives capable of functioning effectively in a world where adversaries exploit both physical vulnerabilities and digital shadows. In recent years, RAW has also navigated a new category of intelligence challenge: the intersection of private corporations, global data monopolies, and national security. With technology companies controlling communication platforms, satellite systems, cloud infrastructures, and advanced AI models, intelligence agencies worldwide have been forced to adapt. RAW established liaison frameworks that allowed it to understand technological changes, anticipate vulnerabilities, and develop strategies to secure data pathways vital to India's strategic autonomy. These interactions were cautious, technical, and often conducted behind closed doors, reflecting the delicate balance between national interests and global digital interdependencies. As the modern era continues to unfold, RAW's future trajectory appears shaped by three defining pillars: digital mastery, global intelligence integration, and strategic foresight. The agency stands at a point where its operations extend beyond traditional boundaries, where the shadows it navigates are no longer confined to physical terrain, but spread across cyberspace, orbital pathways, and the silent architecture of global information systems. Its legacy, built through decades of adaptation, crisis management, and innovation, now evolves into a new form of intelligence practice, suited for a world where power is measured not only by military strength, but by the ability to control data, anticipate threats, and operate seamlessly across interconnected domains. In this emerging landscape, RAW's role remains both critical and enigmatic. An institution operating out of sight, shaping outcomes through knowledge rather than force, and continuously redefining its methods to meet the demands of an era where information itself has become the most potent weapon. This video provides a comprehensive overview of India's premier intelligence agency, the Research and Analysis Wing, RAI. From its inception in the late 1960s to its evolution into a modern, cyber-capable intelligence organization, This documentary explores Avruway's origins, operational strategies, landmark missions, setbacks, and current role in safeguarding national security. Throughout this video, we will uncover how RO started, its foundational principles, key missions that defined its reputation, challenges it faced, and how it adapted to the digital era to maintain strategic advantage. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this documentary with anyone interested in intelligence history. RAW was established in 1968 to address India's emerging strategic and security challenges. The agency's foundation was laid by a group of seasoned military officers and civil servants who had recognized the urgent need for a dedicated foreign intelligence wing, separate from internal intelligence agencies. Initially, RIA's primary mandate was to gather human intelligence, monitor external threats, and provide accurate, actionable insights for policymakers. In its early years, the agency set up a network of operatives across sensitive regions, combining field intelligence, limited technical monitoring, and covert communication channels abroad. This initial framework enabled RAE to quickly become a central pillar of India's intelligence architecture. As RAO grew, it undertook critical operations that established its credibility. During the 1971 Bangladesh crisis, the agency orchestrated complex field networks, coordinating with local resistance groups, analyzing geopolitical developments, and assessing the likelihood of political change. These operations not only influenced strategic decisions, but also cemented RAO's status as an effective regional intelligence player. The 1980s saw ROA develop transnational monitoring programs, tracking enemy networks' financial sources and cross-border communication patterns. By integrating human intelligence with early technological surveillance, RAW provided crucial information that guided national strategic decisions. The 1990s marked a shift towards signal intelligence, SIGINT, with RAO monitoring covert communications and cross-border networks. Analysts pieced together fragmented data to identify emerging threats, revealing hidden infrastructures and networks operating against Indian interests. Beyond the battlefield, RAO engaged in diplomatic and strategic operations, identifying financial and logistical networks that supported hostile activities, while simultaneously enhancing India's international posture. These early decades highlight the agency's strategic adaptation and its capacity to operate in complex, high-risk environments. However, the agency's history also includes notable setbacks. In the early 1980s, RAW faced difficulties predicting the scale of insurgent activity in a neighboring region, revealing the challenges of consolidating fragmented intelligence. The early 1990s saw an ambitious multi-country infiltration mission falter due to compromised communication channels and underestimation of counterintelligence efforts. During a tense regional standoff, rapid changes in local alliances rendered certain intelligence sources unreliable, while a maritime crisis exposed gaps in technical preparedness. A mid-2000s counterterrorism scenario further highlighted delays in analytical assessment, emphasizing the need for improved interagency coordination and real-time data processing. Each of these setbacks served as lessons, prompting reforms in methodology, technology, and analytical rigor. Entering the 21st century, RAO embraced a modernized, cyber-capable operational model. Recognizing the strategic significance of digital networks, the agency developed specialized cyber intelligence units, integrating AI, data science, and network forensics to track adversarial activities online. Field operatives were equipped with advanced tools capable of intercepting encrypted communications and transmitting real-time intelligence. Satellite capabilities provided high-resolution imagery, maritime monitoring, and orbital surveillance, allowing RAO to observe strategic zones in near real time. Combining human, digital, and satellite intelligence enabled comprehensive threat assessments for policymakers. RAW's international scope expanded to address emerging global corridors where strategic competition influenced India as security interests. Operatives often carried dual roles, operating publicly in legitimate professions while gathering critical intelligence discreetly. The agency also developed units to counter misinformation campaigns, detecting and neutralizing disinformation that could threaten national stability. Structural reforms facilitated seamless coordination with other national security agencies, creating multi-agency task forces and secure digital communication channels that enhanced rapid response during crises. Despite technological advancements, RAO continues to prioritize human judgment. Analysts and operatives are selected for cultural fluency, adaptability, psychological resilience, and strategic insight. Training programs incorporate urban operations, digital simulations, language immersion, and scenario-based analysis to prepare officers for complex, multifaceted challenges. In addition, IRAO navigates the evolving interface between private technological infrastructures, global data platforms, and national security imperatives, maintaining a balance between strategic access and operational discretion. Today, RAW operates at the intersection of human intelligence, cyber capabilities, satellite observation, and global strategic influence. Its evolution reflects decades of learning from both successes and failures, adapting to shifting geopolitical landscapes, technological transformations, and emerging transnational threats. The agency exemplifies the principle that modern intelligence is not merely about collecting information, but about interpreting, anticipating, and acting upon it to safeguard national interests. In conclusion, this documentary has traced RA's journey from its inception to the present day, highlighting its formation, operational strategies, landmark missions, challenges, and modernization efforts. The story of RA is one of continuous adaptation, demonstrating how an intelligence organization evolves to meet the demands of changing threats, while maintaining strategic foresight and operational secrecy. Through human expertise, technological integration, and strategic innovation, RAW remains a key instrument in protecting India's national security in an increasingly complex global landscape.